carbonated water.
You can't have that on there and advertise it.
Carbonated water, the Weiss brand. Weiss will owe me some, what would you call it, advertising fee.
Free advertising.
Free advertising. Weiss black cherry flavored seltzer water. Nothing better.
Yuck.
I just like the carbonation because it has no flavor. It's been a long week, hasn't it?
It's been 1 week.
Longer for you than for me.
So how was your week?
It's pretty good. Pretty good. It was strange because this house is pretty big, Doug. We had no kids. Jack came down one night, and that's like having 10 people here. But the rest of the nights, it was kind of boring and dull.
Good.
Good.
Yeah. That's what I want to hear.
And tonight's topic was, have you ever felt the presence of a deceased loved one? So I've been working on this while Doug's been gone. And I was doing a little research last night on spirits and, you know, all kinds of things. And how you have to kind of watch what you do for fear you don't get a spirit you don't want. So I didn't sleep as peacefully as I normally would have. Kind of laid in bed and just kind of looked around and thinking, oh, is anyone in there with me? Yeah. That's all it would have took. I would have peed my pants. But anyway, so. Yep, so we've had a good week. You worked out of town all week.
We had a good week. It was a long week, but
So what time did you start your day?
we usually work at 5:30. Usually got back to the hotel at 6.
So you put in about 12-hour days.
12-hour days, something like that.
For a whole week with 4 you smelly men.
4 men.
4 men.
4
What a
men.
wonderful thing that would be. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's good you're back. My week consisted of not 12-hour days, but still, it was a long week because you weren't here, my love.
Yes. That's okay. I got to sleep with Brian on while I was gone. So.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like a fun time right there. Yeah, you and Brian. Well, anyway, before we started our topic of have you ever felt the presence of a deceased loved one, I just thought I'd tell a funny story. Do you remember me telling you about the time that we thought we lost Kim?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I don't know where you were at. You were probably out on a job site, but Jackie Wirtz used to babysit the kids. She's no longer here, but she was such a sweet woman. And it would have been in the summertime. And Kimberly would have been about 5, I believe, somewhere in that age range.
Probably.
Somewhere in that range, yeah. So the babysitter calls, and the office is here, and there was a white church in between. What's that church called? The Cessna something or other. Christian Cessna Church or something. I don't know. But it's just been next door forever.
No, I don't remember the name of it.
So anyway, the church is there, and then I lived in a double wide. We lived in a double wide there. And so I get a phone call from Jackie that says, Tonya, I can't find Kim. Well, you know, if any parent, if somebody says, I can't find your child, that sends shock waves. That's terror. All of a sudden you can feel your heart racing. Just a slight sense of panic at that moment because it had only been a few moments. So anyway, it's Mom and me were at the office. Rhonda, the cleaning lady, was there. But Rhonda was just minding her own business cleaning. And I went over to Mom and said, Mom, Jackie just called. She can't find Kim. So knowing my mother back in the day, that just instant panic. We left the office. We just left the office wide open. Didn't tell Rhonda what we were doing. We just fled the scene. Doors hanging wide open. So we go running over to the house, go in, start searching. Mom says, you search inside. Mom was going to go check the neighbors. So Mom is just running through yards in a frantic frenzy. And if you remember where Blondie's is at now, you had to go down over and there was a mobile home down in the next lot over.
Right.
Well, there was a little embankment there. So Mom is just like flying around like a nut. And she actually trips and tumbles and tumbles down that hill. She tumbles and she just keeps on going and gets right back up and is running to the neighbors, checking. Nobody's seen Kimberly. It was just to the point where total panic set in. And we live near the road, so anything could have happened. It's not like where we're at now where, you know, if somebody's missing, the odds are they're right somewhere in the yard. But I can just remember getting ready to call the cops. And I don't remember what cable service we had back at that time, but a guy was either installing cable or repairing cable in the one TV. Kibben's room, it would have been in Kibben's room, because Kimberly's room was over here. So apparently Kimberly had decided to take a little nap underneath the covers in Kibben's room, so it looked like just a pile of blanket. Well, this cable guy goes, "Hey, I guess you're not looking for the little kid that's in this room here, are ya?" I tell you what, there was a sense of relief, but there was also a sense of anger that I was about ready to just smack the stupid right out of that cable guy. Like, who else would we be looking for but that child that's hidden in that room? So anyway, it is funny. That story, Mom and I will laugh about that story to this very day. And that's been 28 years ago that happened. But Mom still talks. You remember the time? Yeah, you know.
I can just see that woman rolling down over that hill.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was just, we were just both in a state of panic. There was no calm. But the thing that made me think about that story is, we wonder, do our deceased loved ones watch over us?
Well, they have to be laughing at us.
Well, the thing though, too, you think about that. I think the deceased loved ones watch over us kind of the way we watch over our own children here. When we leave this world, I can't see that that bond would break somehow. I just can't sense that love ever ends. I think that love just never ends. And the panic that we felt for the loss of a child, even though the child wasn't lost, I just feel that our loved ones, and this is just a feeling, that our loved ones would want to know how their babies are still doing, you know? So I just made me think of that story. So I think, yes, our loved ones, I do believe that they can see us, that they can visit us. And I think, I just think that's the truth, just from some of the things we've experienced, from some of the stories I've been told, and I'm going to read some of those stories to you tonight. And these are stories from just everyday people. They're not like crazy people. These are people, all different people who have had experiences, and sure, you could write some of it off, but who's to say that what they said didn't happen? Who's to say that they didn't really have an experience with a loved one? We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. There's no way to prove it. There's no way to disprove it. So anyway, I do believe that our loved ones do give us comfort. And there's one story I'll read that was one of my favorite ones. And the woman felt that she wasn't sure if her loved one was there, but that God allowed her to have that, you know. So, but no, it's just, this is an interesting topic for a lot of people because everybody has somebody that they've lost. But in the Bible it talks about that we shouldn't seek mediums, or I guess they're called spiritists or something, that to communicate with dead ones. I mean, but I don't feel that this is quite the same thing. As a kid, we used to play with those Ouija boards.
Yeah.
We'd go into the closet, like our bedroom closet, like a couple little kids would get around this stupid board and put our little fingers on that thing and see where that would go.
Were you moving it?
Yeah,
I wasn't
moving it. Were you moving it? No, it must be a ghost. It must be a ghost. But anyway, I looked up a little bit of stuff on the Ouija board, and apparently some people feel that it should not be used, and I think I have it here, yes. The Ouija board, Christians warn of that. They mark it, some people called it a talking board or a spirit board. I think that was before, like, Parker Brothers marketed it as the Ouija board. I'm not quite sure. But Christians say you should not do that because you never know for sure. I don't know how a plain old board with letters and words could actually drum up spirits, and I don't think it's the board itself that would be. I think it's what you might be calling upon, what you might be expecting, that you got to be cautious.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and but it still was fun at the time because what we would do is ask it, like I can remember asking it, who will I marry? I don't think it spelled out Doug Miller.
Did it say Doug Miller?
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't say that, I don't think. Or how many kids am I going to have? Or just because there's like a yes and a no, and there's so many numbers and letters, and some of them have goodbye, hello, and all kinds of things like that. But they did explain that it's very interesting. You have to wonder, why does that move like that? And it says the Ouija board myth. Here is what I titled it as. They're talking about all these people that say it's about the spirits, demonic, blah, 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 blah. It said, in fact, there's a simple scientific explanation. The mysterious mechanism that powers the Ouija board is called an idiometer, or idiomotor, it says.
Idiot meter.
Yeah, that might
That was us.
Yeah, we were the idiots. And it's basically a way for your body to talk to itself. It says the idiomotor, I'll do it that way, idia, whatever, motor, effect is an example of unconscious, involuntary physical movement. That is, we move when we're not trying to move. If you've ever experienced the sudden feeling of jerking awake from a sleep, known as a hypnic jerk, wow, I've never heard that, you've experienced a more abrupt version of the idiomotor effect. Your brain signaling your body to move without your conscious awareness. You have the, yeah, that's Doug gets those tics or whatever. All of a sudden he'll be sitting there and he'll just go, and it's
Thanks,
not
I appreciate it.
yeah. Your brain signaling your body to move without your conscious awareness. The obvious difference is that the idiomotor effects happen when you're awake. So the reflexive movements you make are much smaller, hence on the little triangular shaped thing. In case of the Ouija board, your brain may unconsciously create images and memories when you ask the board questions. Your body responds to your brain without you consciously telling it to do so, causing the muscles in your hands and arms to move the pointer to the answers that you, again, unconsciously may want to receive. So, say back then, maybe I would have wanted to marry, let's think of some of the basketball players at Bedford, you know? I might have just, or the sportsy guys, the football players, I might have just subconsciously wanted to move it over there, you know? Doug, you played football and basketball, didn't you?
Yeah, sure, yeah. In the backyard.
In the backyard. But anyway, so that was interesting. So we're not talking about drumming up spirits in that sense, as far as like also we had seances when we were kids, you know. I'm calling whoever to the room. And then we had little girls would just scream and run like we saw something. Ah! But you know what? We never had a Ouija board in our house with the kids.
We didn't either.
No.
Nope.
I mean, no, we did at home.
We didn't have one when I was a kid.
Oh, no.
Our neighbors did, but we did not have one.
No, we had one when I was at home. As a matter of fact, Kimberly, I just talked to her the other night at the ice cream stand. I said, I never let you guys play the Ouija board, nor did we ever ask, you know, they didn't ask for one. She said, no, but we played it at Grandma's because Mom still had that old Ouija board. But anyway, to this day, even though I know it's just a board, I know it's just a little thingy, and this explained how it works and all that, there's still something creepy about that I just never bought one for the kids, and nor do I think I even want to take a chance that I could conjure up something. What do you think?
I believe in spirits
Yes.
from God, heavenly angels, all that, but I also believe in demonic spirits.
Yeah.
And I think any time that you are doing anything like that, you are opening yourself up.
You're opening the door.
Yeah, you're opening the door that to invite something in that you don't want.
Yes.
So I would rather just stay away from anything having to do with anything demonic or calling spirits or seances or anything like that. So
Yeah, yeah. Probably best, some people might say, whatever, but, it is, and that's what I'm thinking, is a little bit different than what we're talking about here. We're talking about loved ones who
Right.
may have reached out to us,
yeah, we're not
talking
talking
about
anything demonic
trying
here.
to pull people,
right,
or
so.
wake somebody up from the dead. Just kind of want to know what's going on there. So, but here are a few common symptoms that you may have been visited by a loved one through dreams. Have you ever had a dream about a loved one that you felt was pretty vivid? Or that you can even remember?
I can't. I'm coming into this cold because
He's been gone
I
all
haven't
week.
had a chance to even think about any of this.
Through dreams, it says simply hearing a meaningful song on the radio. Sometimes it seems that song might have been a favorite of somebody's that just is played while you're having a stressful day, or at certain times, certain things seem to just fall into place. Let's see. So dream visitations, I do believe I've had visitations. I believe I've had visitations from your brother Dave's ex-wife, who is now deceased. She died a few years back, and she was only early 50s, I
Yeah,
believe.
she was
young. And I do believe I had a visitation from her, and in the dream I can remember hugging her and smiling and talking to her, and just, it was just that I knew that she had died even in the dream. But it was almost as if she was just letting me know, hey, things are going good here. And I can remember she looked so healthy, so happy. And it was just a sense of calm and joy and it stuck with me, that dream. There's very few dreams that stick with me.
Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah,
last,
but that was one of them that did. So dream visitations, people will say, we're sensing their presence. Now sometimes I sense a presence that I don't know who the heck it is. Have you, when you're kind of spooked.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just like feel that somebody's looking at you. But what was that? What were
I
you
had a
looking
little
at?
bug flew right
Oh,
across my head.
okay. But anyway, or feeling their touch. It says here, a hug, a brush of your hair, holding your hand, or a gentle touch on your back. These are some of the most comforting forms of connection that can happen. Smelling their fragrance, and there are a few stories of smelling the fragrance. And I know that when Gary had died, Jack's dad, Lindsay had, it would have been within a week, I think, after his death. She smelled his fragrance, and it was a combination of the Village News, the cigarette smell of the Village News, because Gary liked the Village News, and his cologne.
Right.
And there was no clothing. Gary did not live up on the hill with Lindsay, so his clothing weren't in the house. Nobody smoked in the house. Lindsay doesn't smoke. But I forget what she told me she was doing exactly. But she came out, and all of a sudden she smelled that smell. And she was trying to look for what was causing the smell.
Didn't that happen a few times?
It might have.
I was thinking that was more than once.
It might have, but I can just recall of her mentioning that time. And it stayed for a while, and then it was gone. As fast as it came, stayed, and then it was just total gone. It wasn't like anything was left. So something like that, yes, I can see that. Hearing their voice. I've never actually heard a voice. You might hear it in your head, but I have not heard an audible voice. But you did one time. I don't know who it was.
Well, I don't remember it. I remember it, but it was nobody that I identified with at that time.
No. And
That was up at the mobile home while I was working on it.
yes, that was up at the mobile home, and
Heard it twice.
yes. And what did it say? Just hey Doug, or
It said, "Hey Doug." I was working back in the bedroom were replacing the floor. No one else was around. And I actually got up and went outside to look to see who was there, and there was nobody there.
Yeah.
And then I heard it again.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, I had chills the rest of the evening.
Yeah, like who's calling
was-
my name? Because we're back up here. It's your brother's house, Lindsay's, and ours, and everything else is way
Everybody-
down that way. So if
And-
nobody's here, that's it.
Yeah, I heard that as plain as I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
very odd.
It says unexpected electrical activity. Keep on talking. I'm gonna just double check. You know how I like to double check. Yeah, it's going. We've had some electrical activity here, haven't we, hon?
Talking about the light? Yeah, I'll let you
Yeah,
tell that
yeah.
story.
Well, we were both out here sitting by the fire, I believe.
Yep.
And it had been dark for a while.
Pitch black other than the fire.
Pitch black other than the fire. We didn't even have any other lights on. And all of a sudden we both noticed, we didn't say anything I don't think for immediately, but we both noticed that Jack's playroom light turned on.
Turned on.
It literally turned on. And you know, you've checked that light switch. It's not one of those that can linger like half, like might be just stuck where it could,
No,
you know.
I can't get it to stick in the
It
middle.
doesn't
It's either
stick in the
on
middle.
or
It's
it's
either
off.
on or off. And that was strange, and we both noticed it, and we both then questioned ourselves. That light wasn't on before, and no, it wasn't us. We would have
No.
noticed. It was really odd. And the thing was, it was in Jack's playroom.
Right.
So there again, we think Gary was hanging out here for a little while. And I know that I've been sitting in the living room, everybody's in bed, and I'm reading, and all of a sudden one of Jack's toys will start playing. One of those electronic toys. That gives me the willies.
That did give you the
It's just
treat right
like,
there.
But so unexpected electrical devices. If anything just turns on randomly, that type of thing. A phone call. Some people have said they've had phone calls where there's like static. Now see, I wouldn't think much about that, but here's one. The day after my father passed, I received several phone calls from unknown numbers with nothing but static on the other line. While discussing this event with friends, they recounted similar experiences in days following the passing of their loved one. Since a phone is an electrical object, manipulating the energy to make a phone call is not much different than other electrical activity. There again, who knows? You know, could have just been coincidence. I don't know. And then some people think they see some symbolic type messages, small objects, feathers, coins, stones. Spirits like to place things in our path that were significant to them or us, you know, all those kind of things, certain animals, flowers, all kinds of stuff. But it says, though, that very few people, it's rare if somebody actually sees an apparition, like a
figure.
yeah, like a figure. Most people wouldn't see that. But it says many people find that visits from their loved ones are common and plenty in the days, weeks, and months following the loved ones. And when Gary had died, we had a lot of stuff happening in the weeks following, days and weeks following, where somebody I thought was knocking on this back door, and I was just in the kitchen, and it was clear as day somebody pounded on that back door. And once again, this is our back door. It's not like the mailman comes up here. It's not like anybody comes or would ever come back around. We're the only ones up here. And it was not but a few seconds till I came to the door to look to see who was here. Nobody. Nobody was here. And Zachary was downstairs, and he had closed the basement door. And then he noticed a little bit later it was wide open. He went, closed it again. A little bit later, same thing happened, and it was all within the time Lindsay smelled Gary. That, all of that was happening within
Same time.
like a 24-hour
Yep.
time frame. So, yeah, we feel that we've had visitations. And before that, you know, I'm not sure if I had ever noticed anything before unusual like that.
I can't say I can remember anything that stands out.
Oh, the exploding fluorescent light also happened down in the laundry room, and I looked that up, and that's kind of a rare thing, it says, for a fluorescent light just to explode.
It is real.
And thankfully it exploded when I wasn't in the room, but I had just left it a few minutes. and I heard this explosion. And there again, another way, saw a feather on the front porch right in the way of going in. And it was just a different kind of feather. It wasn't like the typical bird feather. And I remember picking that up, and I thought, wow. So there's been quite a few. Oh, we got that 3-page letter, that poem from a lady who I won't say her name, that wrote a poem that she felt that she had received direct from God, Jesus and Gary, that they were speaking to her. And the poem was titled Words I Wish I Could Say. And she said she writes poems, but there was only 2 times in her life that she felt the urge to write one of these poems from a deceased person and then give it to someone. She said it was as if Jesus or Gary was speaking directly to her, and she simply recorded. And it was just like the words just flowed out. And that was given 3 weeks after his passing. And at the end of the poem, it says, words given by Jesus and his brother Gary, and recorded, I'm just going to say Betty, and recorded by Betty and sent to you with love. And that was on August 16th, 2016. And that was a blessing in itself. That was a blessing. But yeah. So anyway, I have some stories from a few people that I know, that we both know, that have either sent through Facebook or I've talked to personally, that gave us some stories that they too felt that a loved one has contacted them.
These are new to me. I haven't.
Yeah, Doug hasn't. He hasn't been around. So the one lady said that she could smell her grandmother. There again, it's one of those signs of a scent. Her grandmother's scent. She could sense her presence one day while making macaroni and cheese, and she asked her, she called her ma'am. Ma'am for grandma. Ma'am, am I making it right? She sensed her presence for several years after that, but that's been a long time ago, and then she stopped. But I don't know if that was her Gram's macaroni recipe that she asked if she was making it right, but she said she did feel that presence, and it's comforting to know. There was also a lady who, a few months after her husband had passed, she was laying in bed one night. She swears she wasn't asleep. He came into the bedroom with his dirty work clothes on. I think he worked in a garage, and asked her if she could help him find something. They struck up a conversation, and then he came over, knelt down by her bedside, gave her a kiss. And the next thing she knew, he was going straight up to the ceiling, and it was light, and she looked at him, and he was young again, just like he was in his youth. And that would have been amazing to see. Can you imagine that?
No.
No. This one is a good one. A woman driving her husband's pickup truck to work said she heard a voice say, "Turn the wheel." She didn't do it right away, just kind of like you. You thought, what? You know. The next time she heard it, she listened. And she had turned it just enough. She did run into the guardrail and spun around, but she had turned it and got off the road in time before she blacked out. Apparently she was going to be having a blackout, and this got her to get off the road. And she's not sure if that voice was God's guardian angel or a loved one watching out, but it was actually an audible voice that she had heard. This one is, if anyone has ever lost a baby. This woman was pregnant, full term, and the baby was stillborn. So this would have happened after the baby had died. She had a grandmother that had passed. I'm not sure how long before that. But she's not sure when this took place, maybe a few months after the baby had died. But she saw in a dream, and it was one of those vivid dreams, her grandmother. It was like a grandmother she had been really close to. They were walking in the field. She saw her grandmother walking in the field with a 2-year-old child. And this is too touching, I might have to cut. But the 2-year-old child, the grandmother turned around and let her know that was her little boy. That her little boy was fine. she smiled, and that gave her such peace. Because as a mother, you blame yourself. If you lose a child or if you do something like that, what could I have done that would have made a difference? And for her to have that peace, after that, she knew that her little boy was okay. So these, I don't think, are demonic type. These are people giving comfort to others. So that one was a blessing for her. And of course, there's others that have smelt, again, the sense of their loved ones. A young fellow told me that his dad was in a vegetative state before his passing. And even though he wasn't with his dad, 24 hours before he passed, he felt his dad's presence. And his dad told him to take care of his mom. And 24 hours later, he got the phone call that his father had passed. 2 years after that, he felt his dad's presence again, and he talked with him. And his dad even called him by his nickname. He told him how proud he was of him, but he said he never actually saw anything, but he could just sense his presence. And one young lady saw her deceased boyfriend, who was murdered by his younger brother, as she was in a car accident, being tossed around. The car was flipping end to end, and miraculously her seatbelt came undone, and she was thrown into the back seat, which actually probably saved her life. The ambulance personnel do not know how she survived the accident, but she saw her dead boyfriend in that car with her that night, and she feels that he is the one who saved her life. Who knows if it happened? But you know what? It is amazing. And I have two stories I want to read to you. These were touching stories. This one is a lady who said her dad died back in 2010, and within the first couple of weeks after his death, I had a dream. She says, now mind you, I don't get many dreams I remember or that are vivid in any way. In the dream, I was dancing with my daddy. I could feel his arms around me. I could even smell him. It was such a blessing. You see, he had been in a coma the last 2 weeks of his life, and I never got to feel his embrace in the last days he was here on earth. There were several, actually many times, that he danced with me. As a little girl, I stood on his feet. Later, I learned to square dance and often danced with him, or in his square. I also danced at my cotillion and my wedding with him. Now, we weren't great dancers, but I do know that dream just blessed my soul so much. Just feeling his touch one more time was precious to me. I guess I don't actually believe that Dad was there with me, but I believe it was his desire, and my Heavenly Father then granted me this beautiful experience that I desired and needed so much. It blessed me beyond measure and gave me more closure than any funeral service ever could. Thank you, Daddy, and thank you, Papa God, for the gift. Now that's a beautiful story.
I did read that story.
Did you read it? That's a beautiful
I
story.
never sent you that.
Yeah. That was a touching story. The first time I read that, I bawled. So
Really?
yeah, I can bawl at some of these things. It's amazing, I know. And then here is a story of a gentleman who felt that he was physically contacted, touched by God. He's an alcoholic. I guess you're always an alcoholic, but he's a recovered alcoholic. In early April of 1999, I was at Father Martin's Ashley Rehab for 28 days. It is located in Havre de Grace, Maryland. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. On the north shore of the Chesapeake Bay. One night, about 2 a.m. in the morning, I couldn't sleep. I had been detoxed from the booze by this time and was in a deep state of depression and remorse because of my drinking. It was a terrible April rainstorm that night, and the temperature was about 35 degrees. I got dressed and walked 200 yards from my dorm to the chapel. I got there soaking wet and cold to the bone. I don't know how long I sat there before I got down on my knees and started talking to God, something I hadn't done for 25 years because I turned my back on him and turned to alcohol. I was shivering so bad the whole pew was shaking, and I prayed hard. I asked for forgiveness and strength to get sober and stay sober. Sometime during that prayer, I felt something on my shoulders. My coldness disappeared, and I felt warm, comfortable, and loved. Somehow I knew at that point that for the rest of my life, I would spend it helping the sick and suffering alcoholic and addict know the love and grace of God. And here is an interesting fact. I have not suffered another day of depression since that night, and I have continued to help others ever since. Just one more thing. Every time I go back to that chapel, I break into uncontrollable tears of joy and gratitude that I can't even understand. I believe that God touched me that night and provided what I needed, but I had to be ready to receive His love and grace, which I knew I did not deserve. I will continue to serve Him in the capacity He has called me to, helping the drunk and addict know Him, the people that others turn their backs to. And I will do it with the joy in my heart for the one who saved me. And he has been sober for almost 20 years now. So God definitely did touch him, healed him, and gave him the strength to then be a testimony to others and help them.
This person is one of the most jovial people that I know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
He's definitely a kind-hearted one. But I think sometimes, I was reading a book from a local person, and I guess she's a medium. I can't say for sure. I have the book that I'm reading, and I had actually thought about going. Apparently there's going to be an event in Bedford, and I had thought about going to see it just out of curiosity, and I don't know if I will or not. I'm not sure, because there's no loved ones that I need to speak to, and I think that when I think what He's telling us is why not to consult mediums and spiritists is we are to consult Him in everything. If we want to know that our loved ones are okay, let's talk to God first. If God wants to lead us to that person who maybe can help discuss that person with us, or like, let's just say Betty sent that beautiful letter. If we want to know how someone's doing, God can use people. They don't have to be mediums. God can direct that person to you.
God can touch you in ways a medium will never be able to. And I agree with Betty. I think our Daddy in heaven loves us so much.
Yes.
And He knows what we need. So if we need a touch from a loved one, we need closure, I think He provides that.
Yes.
It may not be our loved one's spirit coming back, but I think God can touch us in those ways and use those memories and those things to heal.
Yeah.
So I need to give the credit to God.
Yes.
And His love for us.
Yeah, and in any of these situations, that could have been God providing
Yes,
that
definitely.
scent, or God providing that, just letting you know that, hey, it's okay, all's okay. Or that, in that girl in that car accident, she may have seen her boyfriend, and maybe at that time that would have given her some peace during the situation, who knows? But that could have been God who took hold of that seatbelt and released it, so she would be. We don't know, and the thing to do is to remember to always seek God first. Always seek God first. But, so that's pretty much all I had. I know there's a lot of people out there who have lost people, and they're just so desperate to have one last conversation, or one last hug, or one last touch, and it's heartbreaking. For so many people that, there's a lot of lonely people out there. They lose their spouse, or people who have lost a child, and I can't even imagine I can't imagine that. So, sure, I could see people being in desperation, reaching out to mediums or anyone that they want to try to get that person, But we should always remember that God is the one who will give us comfort. And He's the one we should seek.
I agree. Good lesson.
Would you like to close with a word of prayer, since I babbled the whole time, bawled, cried,
Yeah, I think you would be good at giving the prayer since you did the lesson.
He's back. Oh, thank you, Lord. Thank you for a beautiful week. And I'm just so thankful that my husband's back with me this evening, that they had a safe trip. And I just thank you, Lord. And I just lift up all the people to you today that are suffering, that have lost a loved one. And Lord, just give them comfort and peace. Give them some sort of sign and let them know that they can relax and know that their loved one is doing just fine in your presence. And Lord, we just thank you and we praise you in all that you do for us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. See, you did very well.
Well, you
And
know.
you didn't even write it down?
But no, I didn't. Are you going to give me like a little star or something? Give me a pat on the back. Okay, folks, it was nice talking to you again. And Lindsay and Brady were supposed to be here tonight, but they're off gallivanting around having fun, you know, like younger people do.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. So hopefully we'll catch up with them later, and that'll be that.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah, it's getting dark.
Good night.
It's 8 o'clock and it's almost dark.
Well, you know, it is almost September.
I know, and that's depressing.